Psalm 141. Had to remember the number. And so as we come to the psalm together this morning, David is the author not only of this psalm, but all the way through, I believe it's 40, 45, or 46, that he has written these. And we're not sure exactly the situation that's transpiring, and David writes this. There's 10 verses here that we're going to look at, and we're not going to look at them consecutively. We're going to break them up as we go through them this morning. But it's interesting. David's in a situation where he's desperate and he's crying out to the Lord. And we're going to take a look at this situation, and we're going to see what he cries out to the Lord about first and foremost. Is, of course, he wants the Lord to hear him. And so as we begin this psalm, we'll break it down as we look at it together. He says, "O Yahweh, I call upon you. I cry out to you, and so hasten to me. So give ear to my voice when I cry, when I call out to you. And may my prayer be counted as incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as the evening offering." And so right away, David makes it clear that he's crying out to the Lord. And he desires the Lord to answer quickly. But at the same time, he's saying, "Lord, I want my prayer to be counted as incense." Why would he say that? That's exactly what it does. Incense represents the prayers. And so in Exodus chapter 30, verse 8, I should have put it on the screen, but I didn't for you. Incense, okay, was a mixture of various spices. And it was very specific that they had to use before the Lord. Now the question is, where is this altar of incense at? In the tabernacle or the temple, whichever one you want to say. I should have brought all these pictures and put them for you on the screen. What we have is the altar of incense is only small. Just picture it like 1 foot by 1 foot, and it's got 4 horns on the top of it. It's only standing about 3 feet above the ground, and inside there is a grate, and they would put the incense in there, and it would continually burn, and that was to burn forever, never stop. And it was placed right in front of the huge tapestry of the huge curtain that covered the Holy of Holies, so you couldn't look back at the Ark of the Covenant that was right behind the curtain. That's the last piece of furniture sitting right in front of the curtain. All right? Now, what it's showing is that prayer is to never cease going up into the Lord's presence. It was to burn continually. And then that incense being a specific mixture that nothing else was allowed to be burnt. It had to be exactly what God said, or you were in big trouble. And probably end up forfeiting your life if you stuck something on that wasn't supposed to be there. And so that incense was a specific mixture of these spices, and what it was showing is God requires a certain way to pray. There's a certain way to enter into his presence. Now David writes in the other Psalms, I cannot come into the Lord's presence unless I have clean hands and a pure heart. And so you can't come into his presence with sinful hands and a sinful mindset. Not going to work. You may try, but you're not going to get real far. And so he says, may my prayer be seen to you as this perfect incense that you so delight in. And it's pictured as the smoke rises from the incense, it's pictured as this coming into the nostrils of the Creator. And it is a soothing aroma that he just enjoys tremendously. And he's just, are there some senses that you enjoy tremendously? Yeah, ribeye steak cooking on the grill. Just to take that in. Best bacon isn't too bad too. I don't mind taking that in. Yeah, ribeye. yeah. I probably have it February 3rd, day after. So he says, now listen, he says, Lord, he says, may my time with you, may this be really pleasing to you and in your nose. And that nose, God's taken everything right into his very being, right into his very presence. And so what we see here is David seems to be separated possibly from the tabernacle. Okay, temple's not going to be built until David's off the scene and Solomon builds it. But the tabernacle. And so most likely there's a possibility maybe he's running from Saul in this situation. We don't know. But he says, the lifting up of my hands as the evening offering. So he's saying, so can my prayer be also like the lifting up of my hands? And so what the Israelites would do is just this. They would lift up their hands. When they pray, they would lift up their hands oftentimes when they offered a sacrifice. And so there's a couple things that the lifting up of the hands can show. It can show a posture of reverence. It can show that you're praising God and that you're coming into him. But when he says the lifting up of my hands as the evening offering, that's a sacrifice. And that would happen at about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Two things they would do there. A lamb would be offered in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. Every day. And so you got your morning sacrifice, your evening sacrifice. And this idea is also of lifting up of the hands is probably a confession. Okay, because you're offering a sacrifice for your sins at the evening offering. And so for the whole nation, and so it probably has this idea of confession tied to it also. So may my time before you show this. May I be bringing before you what you and how you desire for me to commune with you. And may I have a heart of humility as I'm praising you, realizing my unworthiness to be in your presence. But to rejoice that I'm in this incredible presence of this holy God. But notice, he says, I'm crying out to you and come to me quickly. I need you. So give ear when I call to you. And so what we see here in Revelation chapter 5, verse 8, is about the incense representing prayer. He says here about the angel, it says, when he had taken the book, that is the Lamb, I should say, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each one holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. So you see right there, very clearly, the golden bowls are the prayers of the saints. It says, then another angel came in Revelation 8 and stood at the altar, holding a golden censer, and much incense was given to him. so that he might add it to the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints went up before God out of the angel's hand and into the Lord's nostrils. This is astounding. Just look at this verse here. First of all, the prayers that were just prayed during the tribulation period, it says that he might add it, this golden bowl full of intercession, that he might add it to the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar which is before the throne. Now, this is unbelievable. God is saying every prayer you've ever prayed, every prayer that any believer has ever prayed, is before the Heavenly Father in this incredible golden bowl. You talk about infinite value of all your communion with the Creator. He keeps every time that you and I talk to Him, and we're truly connecting with Him, He keeps it before Him, listen, forever. And there's just more and more that's added to it. Look where it is. It was before the throne, right before the very eyes, right before the very presence of the Heavenly Father. And it goes up before God, right into His nose. Guys, you see that? For all eternity, every time you're talking to the Lord, He is holding all those prayers before Him. What you prayed the day that you got saved and your prayer finally connected with God, okay? That's there in that bowl like you prayed it 1 second ago. So He never takes His eye off of any of our communion with Him. Never, ever. It's impossible for this unbelievable being. And He holds it in the most precious place that He could possibly hold it. It is right before Him on His glorious throne. And so it just comes right into His nose. It's constantly there. You got a picture of this Creator who is so crazy about you and me that He can never, ever forget even anything that we've thought. He can't forget it. It's there. And particularly our communion with Him. That's astounding. Verse 3 of Psalm 141, David then says, okay, he states this, and now what he's going to say is kind of interesting because all this is progressing towards what you and I are facing today. This is going to really apply to you and me. But verses 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6, you're going to see is David saying to Lord, you've got to sanctify me. You've got to set me apart. In other words, you've got to create holiness in me. I can't do it. So he asked the Lord, set a guard. Set a soldier, O Yahweh, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. And Lord, do not incline my heart to any evil thing. Do not point my mind to any evil thing to practice deeds of wickedness with men who do iniquity, and do not let me eat of their sensuality. Notice who he's relying on. He's not relying on himself in any way, shape, or form to stay out of sin. His reliance is totally upon the Lord. And he says to the Lord, that's why I always say, my prayer to the Lord is, Lord, keep a short chain on me. I mean, a choker chain. Because I am prone to run from you. And when I start in the wrong direction, yank on that chain and tighten it as tight as you can get it. Because believe me, I know my sinful self. And listen, and if I was set up in the right circumstances, it would not be good. So David says, Lord, I need you to set a guard even over my mouth. So keep watch over the door of my lips. But notice how he's going to do that. First, you've got to not let my mind be turned towards wickedness. And so he's saying, Lord, even you need to help me so my mind doesn't go into the gutter, so I don't think the wrong things. I need your help. And so as soon as our minds do go in that direction, this is what you cry out to the Lord right here. Help! Because once our minds go down the wrong street, guess where our feet are going? And our hands. Yeah, we're going right down the same street as our mind just went down, and it's not going to be good. So he says, don't incline my heart to any evil thing, to practice deeds of wickedness. Lord, even my thoughts, help me. Because I am being tempted by men who are filled with iniquity. They're trying to get me to do the wrong things. Don't let me eat of their sensual delicacies. Has the idea here of they're really enticing good, what we would call good. Nice big cold cup of beer. Don't let me be enticed by it. Whatever sin they're trying to get me to go into, Lord, help me to have the mindset. You give me the mind to say no and to realize that the wages of sin is death. That's what we're going to end up with here. So, Lord, you've got to do it. I can't do it. Set a guard. And watch over my mouth that I don't speak when I I just be quiet when I should be quiet. And I speak when I should speak. So we see this in Psalm 39:1. David says this, I will guard my ways that I may not sin with my tongue. I will guard my mouth as with a muzzle while the wicked are in my presence. But you know, and I know that his dependence is upon the Lord when he says, I'll guard my ways. And so when we're in the presence of wicked people, we got to be very careful that we don't fall in line with the sin that they're living in and what they're joking about or what have you, or what they're trying to entice us to become part of. So he says, he who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from trouble. Troubles, plural. We really need to learn, at least I do, keep your mouth shut and just listen. Psalm 119, incline my heart to your testimonies, Lord. So incline my thoughts to your word and not to dishonest gain. Again, a reliance upon the Lord. Lord, you take my mind and help me to get it on your word. And the only way you're going to, listen, you've got to know the word in order to put your mind there. So you've got to memorize it. You've got to read it. You've got to hide it. Thy word have I hidden in my heart, in my mind, that I might not sin against thee. It's just that simple. It's got to be there, or you're not going to have the power there. And you got to let the Lord then bring his word into your mind. And so now he states this as far as his turning away from sin and turning to the Lord is what we call sanctification, staying out of sin. He says, let the righteous smite me in kindness. In other words, let the righteous beat me on the head in kindness and reprove me. Now, literally, this is the idea of smite. You want to feel it. It's taking a fist and taking the knuckles and me whacking you as hard as I can on the top of your head. That's smiting. I wouldn't. The only way I'd do this is if I had brass knuckles. That's going to hurt me probably more, hurt some of your hard heads. Oh, did I say that? Oh, I mean, some of your heads, I mean. So he says, let the righteous knock me in the head in kindness and reprove me, rebuke me. It is oil upon the head, and do not let my head refuse it, for still my prayers against their wicked deeds. So it's kind of interesting. He's saying, now listen, he says, even let the righteous, he says, Lord, help me to be yielded to those who reprove me. Because truly, when I get rebuked for where I'm starting to err in my thinking or in my actions, when somebody more righteous than me rebukes me, it's like pouring oil onto my head. And you go, what? Yep, oil. Oil is refreshing. Okay, that's how they refresh themselves. But oil also, particularly I know on the heads of sheep, okay, would take care of mites and other animals. It would bring healing, all right? So oil is a good thing. It's medicine. So it's oil upon the head. Do not let my head refuse it. In other words, Lord, help me to be humble when somebody more righteous rebukes me for my sinful actions or words. For still my prayer is against their wicked deeds, because I'm still opposed to wickedness. Now, this is kind of weird. Verse 6 and 7, this is up for interpretation, and it can go so many different ways. It says their judges are thrown down by the sides of the rock. In other words, the rulers are thrown over the cliff onto the rocks, and they split apart in pieces as they're thrown down over the cliff, and their bodies are slamming into the rocks. And they hear my words, for they are pleasant. What? As one plows and breaks open the earth, our bones have been scattered at the mouth of Sheol, at the mouth of the grave. What? Yeah, good question, guys. What?
NIV has a word pretty well.
Okay.
So it picks up the bottom of 5. So it says, yet my prayer is ever against the deeds of evildoers. Their rulers will be thrown down from the cliffs, and the wicked will learn that my words were well spoken.
That's good. I like that. Okay.
They will say, that as is the wicked, they will say, quote, as one plows and breaks up the earth, so our bones have been scattered at the mouth of the grave. That's like the wicked speak. Oh.
Yeah, that's one of many, many interpretations, okay? All right. I like that idea that's brought out there by these words. And one thing is certain through all of this, okay? That David, he's saying, Lord, in haste answer me. Hear my cry, all right? Because something is going on with the rulers who need to be thrown down, who need to be thrown over the cliff. And when people hear my words, or when this transpires, when they are thrown down over the cliff, they will know that my words are pleasant, my words are right. And as one plows and breaks open the earth, and then he states, our bones have been scattered at the mouth of the grave. And what he's saying is, these wicked rulers have caused us to be in the position of death, right at the grave. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, whatever is transpiring here in the text, these rulers are the ones who are opposing the righteous. These rulers are the ones who are causing suffering. These rulers are the ones who are wicked. And David's prayers are against their wicked deeds. Proverbs 15:31 says, he whose ear listens to life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. And so that would tie in with what we actually read before, okay? That if you listen to reproof, you're going to dwell among the wise. And then I like what Proverbs 17:10 says about reproof. It says, a rebuke goes deeper into one who has understanding than 100 blows to a fool. So you can give a fool 100 blows with the whip, and it won't change him at all. But a rebuke, it'll go extremely deep into a person with understanding. And the person with understanding is the person who will listen to it, who will humble themselves and will repent. So, when he's talking about these evil, wicked rulers, David then says this, for my eyes are towards you, O God the Lord, which is the sovereign Lord. For my eyes are toward you, O Yahweh, Adonai, the sovereign one. It's in you I take refuge, so do not leave me defenseless. Keep me from the jaws of the trap which they have set for me, and from the snares of those who do iniquity. And let the wicked fall into their own nets, while I pass by safely. So what we have here is David realizing his refuge, his place of defense, isn't some high tower, some strong fortress, okay? It isn't a ton of ammunition and guns and grenades and everything. His defense is in the Lord himself. It's in you, Yahweh, that I take refuge, so don't leave me defenseless. You need to be my protection, my defense, and you truly are. God does not need an army tank to protect you. Now, he may bring an army tank to protect you. But God's the one who will protect you. David experienced this over and over again, even gone up against Goliath by just taking the sling and the stone. He had no sword in his hand. He had no helmet. He had nothing to protect himself. The only thing that was his defense and his offense was the Lord. He said, who are you to defy the armies of the living God? and I'll slay you in the name of my God. And that's who his offense and his defense was, Yahweh himself. And so guess who caused the stone to hit Goliath square right in between the eyeballs like a bullet? And down he went. David would watch the Lord protect him again and again from Saul in supernatural ways so that his life was spared. Now look what he asked the Lord, though. Keep me from the jaws of the trap which they have set for me. So these rulers, these guys in positions and power of authority, they set some nice traps and nice snares. You ever see Vietnam and the traps that those guys set? What do they call those? Congo? Viet Cong set for the Americans? It was horrific. And if you stepped in one of those babies, in a second you were dead in a horrible way. The traps and the snares that they had were unbelievable. I don't even like to even think about it, how horrible it was. And he's saying, this is what you've got to keep me from, because these rulers have set up the same kind of traps and snares, but let them fall into it themselves. And God has a way of doing that. Yep, just like they did with Daniel. Guess what? He flipped it around. Esther, the exact same thing. And Haman, Mordecai, flipped it right around. He was hung on the gallows. And so the Lord could do this, but this is what you have to ask him. He doesn't do it automatically. It's for those who come before him in prayer. Like incense. Yeah, I wouldn't focus in on that. I would go, I know that vengeance is the Lord, and the Lord will take care of them. Better than what you and I could ever take care of them, okay? But here's what I want you to realize. What he's writing about here is going on right now for you and me. There are rulers, there are people in positions of authority and power that are setting up unbelievable snares and traps to take our lives. I'm seeing the consequences of it all around us. People dropping like flies. And so what we have to do is we've got to lean in on the Lord, and we've got to say, you protect me from these traps and these snares. Let me see them. Let me understand what these rulers who are very wealthy are doing and trying to take my life. Because those, believe me, when you set a trap, if any of you trap for animals, okay, you don't set the trap and you go, oh, stick it out in the open and let's put a lot of sense around it and flashing lights so the animal doesn't step in it, right? No, I don't think so. It is disguised, and you stick it in there, and you make sure there's no scent from you as you place that, and you put it in an exact position. Guess what? Why? Why did you put it right on that log that goes across the creek where you see scat laying on that log? Why did you put it right there and you fashioned it in there so it was just at the right place? So when that animal came by on that log, as it always does, so here's what the rulers do. They know you in the way that you go. They know how they can entice you. If not, they can entice you to go that way, and you end up falling right into their snare, right into their trap, exactly where they wanted you to go, and they set the whole scenario up. Oh, we've got a bad thing out there that's killing everybody. You better take this shot and that shot, and we'll see how well you do. You need it. It's going to rescue you. Set the whole scenario up. That's just one of many. And so you can rest assured, coming in this year, there are going to be plenty of snares set up by the wicked. There's going to be plenty of traps, and the only way that you and I are going to avoid them is we got to come into the Lord's presence, and we got to say, Lord, help, hasten. Open my eyes so that I can see. Show me what's going on. Protect me. Be my defense. But the most important thing is that through it all, I don't in any way, shape, or form fall into sin. And especially in joining them. And so David writes this psalm of showing us how to come into the Lord's presence, our prayer being like incense, and we're coming and we're asking the Lord to hear our cry, and so that he can see our prayer and see our heart, and it is like that good smelling aroma of that incense coming into his nostrils. And David's not just concerned about protecting his life, but he's really concerned about not sinning against the Lord, and so that he doesn't go the way of the wicked, but that the Lord helps him to walk in those paths of righteousness, and that ultimately that the Lord, because of that, will protect them from the snares and the traps that these ruthless, evil individuals have set up. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, the Lord needs to be our refuge. The Lord needs to be our defense. The Lord needs to be our righteousness. And then in that, you and I can never go wrong. Never. He will give you and me wisdom beyond our years. Wisdom beyond your ability or my ability. He will give us insight beyond what we can see physically. He'll allow us to see into the darkness and to see the traps that are being set. But it's only him. David knew this. David lived this. And so we got in Psalm 141 right here, I'm telling you, a good prayer, a good setup for 2024 for each of us. To really come after the Lord to keep us safe and to bless us spiritually in righteousness.